I think every entrepreneur is a little delusional. I just made like $9,000 selling protein shakes online. What makes people sabotage their efforts? And when everybody else was saying it's going to be the end of the world, I was like, how do I monetize the end of the world, you know?
Hey, Cayla, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. You know, Charlie Fusco, a bunch of our friends, I've been hearing your name bashing around different arenas and different sandpits, and it's kind of piqued my interest. And then when they said to me, hey, do you want to chat with this girl? You know, my first question is always like, why? You know, and it's not meant to be rude, but, you know we always get podcast pitches every second. But when I hear about your journey from an ER nurse to where you are now, I was like, this girl's got something. So before we kind of unveil to the audience why they should be listening to you, and they should, give us that journey from ER nurse, basically not the richest person in the planet. You're an ER nurse. Sadly, they don't get paid what they should,
right,
to where you are now, and what is your cause? Give us your journey.
Wow. Oh my goodness, it feels like so many lifetimes ago. I don't know if you think about when you just got started, how much has happened since then and all the different evolutions, you know, of yourself. But I knew I wanted to be an ER nurse at a very young age. So I'm talking like 13 years old. I decided I wanted to be an ER nurse. And it's important that I tell this part of the story because the reason why I chose nursing is not a reason I recommend to anybody when they're trying to figure out their career. I was raised by a single mom with my dad in jail. He was a drug addict and he still struggles with addiction today. And I just had a lot of chaos in my childhood. So people that are listening in right now, you know, if you've had chaos, you crave stability. Like you want to know, you're kind of like, take the safe route, right? So I can know exactly what's going to happen to me tomorrow. That's why I chose nursing, was because I was like, there's a nursing shortage. I'm always going to have a job. This is the best thing ever. So by the time I was 21, I was an ER nurse. 23 years old, I found myself as an ER charge nurse and had one child. And I looked around and I knew enough to know like, hey, what I do right now is, you know, what's going to set me up in my 30s. And I looked around at everybody that was nurses, doctors, and they all looked miserable and unhealthy. And I was like, okay, if I want a different life than them, I've got to do something different now. So this was just in the beginning when Facebook had just gotten started. Like you still needed a school email address to get on Facebook. Okay. So that's like, you know, ancient days. But I started to kind of just talk on Facebook, the status update. You know, I'm annoyed today, spilt coffee on myself, like basic stuff, just being myself. And little did I know I was becoming an influencer online by just being myself. I wasn't positive every day, but I would just share what I was thinking, what I was doing to motivate myself, and people loved it. And so I started to recommend products and became a millionaire by the time I was 26 and decided to leave nursing then. So that is the story in a nutshell.
So, do you know, it's funny, you know, everyone talks about, when Facebook was, it wasn't that long ago. We're still very, very early ages. Yeah. And you know, most of us can still remember MySpace and Friendster, you know, so yeah, it does that. So I remember in some of the messages I got from you, you were saying that you were aggravated, but you didn't have anyone around you that had this kind of money. So you didn't have any, like nowadays we can go on YouTube, we can buy books, we can get, you know, we've got all of that knowledge. In fact, the sad thing is we've got too much knowledge because a lot of it is crap. So, you know, we've got all this information around us. What was your starting point? You really get down to the macro level here of going, well, okay, I know I need to get out. And one little question, just for my own personal curiosity, what is the difference between an ER nurse and a charge nurse?
Oh, so an ER charge nurse is that I was like in charge of all the other nurses on shift that day.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I wouldn't take patients anymore. I would just like make sure everything was running smoothly and we had a good flow in the ER.
Right. All right. So you've got that. What was the first step into independent monetization?
Yeah. So first of all, you have to be exposed to other opportunities. I was raised in a small town. My mom was a hairstylist. Everybody in my family had normal, traditional jobs. And I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I really honestly didn't until I was exposed to one. And a girl, I met her at a play date at the park. Our little boys were friends. They were little, like 2 years old. And she said, I just made like $9,000 selling protein shakes online. And I said, well, what do you mean selling protein shakes? And I'm like, what? I was so confused. I was like, well, I want to try it. So that's number one. I think you have to be exposed to it. And so if you're listening in right now and you kind of don't know what that next step is for you, what you're going to do to monetize your life or monetize your brand, you've got to expose yourself to different types of people. So don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. You got to put yourself out there, even if it is a play date, but just meet people, talk to people, find out what they did to become successful. And yes, podcasts are great. You're going to hear, really great information on there. But when you know somebody in real life that can tell you, oh, I did this, it's a lot more motivating and believable for you to go, oh, maybe I could do that too.
What came first? I know you said about, and it's funny that you say you needed a school email to get onto Facebook. What came first, the building of the community or the selling of the protein shakes?
I had been posting on Facebook for about a year and then the selling of the protein shake. So when I made my first comment to talk about the protein shakes, I had 76 sales. And that was proof for me. I was like, wow, okay, this works. And then I got a little bit more strategic about what I was sharing online. I was like, I'm going to talk about wellness and talk about health and educate people, and really learned as I went along.
Yeah, look, we all do that. We learn to take it seriously when stuff goes our way. But before that, it's all shits and giggles. So, but if we rewind it and we can look at, you started to build up a community by being you.
Yes.
Then you started to expose something, found that there was a monetization in it. And one of the comments that you made when you sent it to me was to shatter society's addiction to the paycheck.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people love the devil they know. And they're like, whoa, I don't want to risk this. I'm much happier being bored, senseless, and miserable, but knowing I get paid on Friday. Mm-hmm. As an entrepreneur, and it was funny that you said you didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I think the meaning of entrepreneur has probably changed over the decades. I remember if we were an entrepreneur in the 80s and the 90s, it meant that we was, selling stolen shit. It had a bad vibe, didn't it? If you were an entrepreneur in the 80s, it meant that you couldn't get a real job. Now, entrepreneurs are rock stars, aren't they? Mm-hmm. So you took it further. You actually started focusing on it. You started focusing on asset wealth. You started monetizing it and on real estate, angel investor. You didn't stop. Yeah. And you decided somewhere along the line, you got to do a book. Now, is this your first book?
This is my first book with a publisher. I did self-publish a book like a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my baby, like my big one.
Why?
Why did I want to write a book? So, after I started selling the protein shakes and doing all these things, I found out that I love teaching people about social media. And so I would teach people social media and they wouldn't take action. And I was so confused because I'm like, here's the keys to the kingdom, like go do it. And people would be like, I'm scared. My neighbor Sally down the street is going to judge me for posting this. What? I never really understood how people cared about what other people thought. And I need to say that because it's not that I don't have empathy. It's because of my childhood. It's really important to understand when you have, the one male in your life that is supposed to be there, be your rock and guide you, and he abandons you, you have that sense of rejection at a very young age. And so you can either succumb to that, but it helped me rise because I was like, well, if I can handle the rejection from this guy, then, I'm going to be good. Obviously, I had to deal with it later on, how it came up in my marriage and stuff like that. But it was really important for me to go, okay, if I'm going to have these students be successful with social media, I need to understand the psychology of change and what makes people sabotage their efforts. before they even get started, right? And so I just went to work on being an expert on change and transformation. And I created a Take 7 coaching method that I believe anybody could follow to get what they want in life. And writing the book, it's like my legacy play. It's $30, and you have this tool in your hands that you can give to your kids, that you can do, and you can have success. And so that's really why I was so passionate about getting the book out there into a lot of people's hands. And I'm so happy I did it.
All right. So it's craftedoffer.com is where you can find out about the book. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. I don't like to wait until the end before that. So craftedoffer.com, you're going to see the links below here. Now you focus on the social, and I want to attack two things, the social and the offer. Social. Now we've just joked about needing a school email for Facebook. Social has changed, and for a lot of elements of it, it's still the wild, wild west. We still don't know what we're doing. I have a media company, and like an algorithm will change, and everything I learned last week now has to adapt. How do you see the usage of social, meaning how we are using it rather than it using us? How do you see that changing over the next, few years?
That's a great question. I was just thinking about how things are going to evolve even more, because I know more and more people that are actually getting off social.
Yep.
And they're like, they want a quieter life. I mean, I find myself deleting the apps on the weekends because I'm like, I don't even want to go on there. So I believe that social media will evolve into where, it's in the air, and we're going to be able to go like posts in the air. Like the Jetsons, where the screen's like right in front of you and just thin air. I believe that's where
we have Apple Vision now for that. So I see the platform. I'm on about the usage of it.
Oh, the usage of it. So I just think it's going to become even more a part of our life, just virtual living. Unfortunately, like that's what I think is going to happen. And so us as creators, I feel like we have a responsibility to really understand the responsibility of having influence over people and reminding people to unplug, reminding people to go into their real lives and to enjoy nature and like what is actually in creation that's real and not fake. I think that more and more like influencers are going to need to start like saying these types of things. So I know that for me, like I even say that in part of my book, I'm like, become a creator. So before you consume anything, create something in the morning, whether that's journaling, writing a poem, like just doing something that really takes your imagination and lets it run wild. I think that's so important. And the more that we focus on being creators, I think the less we're going to want to consume. We're going to want more space so we can create more and more.
That's just leading me down a rabbit hole now. So here's a question that may sound as though there's a hidden agenda behind it, and there is. Your books. Do you read many books? I
read a lot of books. Yeah.
The last, say, 5 to 10 books, what have they been? Can you even quote what they are?
Well, so I'm really into fiction right now. So actually I could, because I just finished the Mark of the Lion series, and it was based back in like 2,000 years ago. And it's a really cool little thing, but it was all about after Jesus died, and then like how all the Romans were reacting to it, and how just that completely changed the whole world. So anyways, it was a very fascinating, it was 3 books in one, so what I do now, I read a lot of fiction. It helps me. I don't like to watch TV or anything like that, but I love reading fiction. It actually helps me like tone down my brain, because it's constantly coming up with ideas and craziness. And then when it comes to like nonfiction and stuff like that, it has to be a really good book. The last nonfiction book I read was actually called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Berthold.
Great book. Yeah,
and I love that book. Yeah, the whole concept, I was like, I need to be way more fierce with saying no, and just like creating systems to help me, have more time in my life, because my kids are teenagers now. And I think, gosh, like I don't want to keep going at the same pace I've been going the last 10 years. So
yeah, we had Dan on our podcast a while back.
oh, cool.
Dear old friend, cool guy. The reason I asked that question, and here's my aha moment about it, is I've noticed most creative people read more fiction than they do nonfiction. They do read nonfiction, but I've noticed that, and it's been a question that I've actually ended up bringing in. No one's picked up on it yet that I asked that. So now I've kind of screwed myself for the next podcast. But I noticed that when we start looking at tactics, and Dan's got a great book, Alex Hormozi's obviously got the offer books. There's a lot of great books out there on tactics and strategies, but they work on one part of your brain. And when you start getting into the fiction where you have to imagine the backdrop, the color, the smells, and all of this kind of stuff, your brain kind of explodes with dream. And I believe a lot of people today are actually limiting the amount that they actually dream, and therefore limiting the amount they create. Because to create, you have to dream, you have to imagine. So you saying about the creation, it seems that we share the same theory, that creation is the important element, and everything else is just how we get to that creation.
Yeah, I feel like the strategy is always changing. If you go walk into a room with 100 millionaires right now and you ask every single one of them how they do it, you're going to get 100 different stories.
Yeah.
It's not always, I followed this one formula and it worked. It's 100 different, strategies. And so the most important thing that I wish people would understand is that you can create your way, you can create your path. And the more that you lean into the fact that you have everything inside of you needed for success, and sometimes the thing that you have inside of you that is needed is a magnet, for the other people, for your agency, right? To help them, a media agency to help them. Like, you attract the right people into your life to help you get to the finish line of whatever you're going towards, but you have it within, and you just have to continually fill up your cup with, good things. So I don't think reading nonfiction is bad, because if I feel a lot of times when people, unfortunately, when we have too much idle time, we can fill it with something like Netflix, right? Like, I'd rather read a nonfiction book that tells me a bunch of marketing strategies that I've already heard before than go and watch a true crime thing that just instills me with fear. So it's crazy to me how the number one podcast out there in all of the land is true crime. And I'm like, why do people want to listen to this stuff? And we wonder why there's so much fear and anger in society. It's like, that's what people are listening to. It's crazy.
If it bleeds, it leads. Sadly, as human beings, we love all of that. I'm interrupting this podcast for 35 seconds to give you more value. If you are an ambitious entrepreneur looking for the opportunity in everything you come across, don't just listen to this podcast. Imagine taking part in these conversations every week. Imagine having a new network of creative and disruptive entrepreneurs to support and push you into becoming the person you can be. With this high level and exclusive community, it exists. Head to simsdistillery.com to learn more. Interesting little twist. Beginning of COVID, what did you do?
Oh gosh, PTSD. No, beginning of COVID was a very interesting time for me, because 2020, I had 18 events planned. I was supposed to be in Bali in April 2020. And so, with a whole group of people that had paid to go. And so I was in very much like, okay, how do we make all of our events virtual? And make people feel like everything they were going to get with the in-person events is happening virtually. So I think I just went into creation mode again and had to get imaginative about what we did and what we created. And a lot of our students had their best years ever, despite what was happening, in COVID, because we did a lot of stuff socially and got a lot of people engaged and did a lot of, different challenges online to help people, achieve their goals in 2020. So I would say that's what I did. I didn't believe it was like real. So, I think every entrepreneur is a little delusional. And I definitely fall into the category of delusional. So when everybody else was saying it's going to be the end of the world, I was like, how do I monetize the end of the world? So yeah.
Do you know, it's funny you say that, but that's our brain path. You know, as entrepreneurs, there's an opportunity. They say the richest guy on a rainy day is the guy selling the umbrellas. I remember I live in Los Angeles, and and of course, every entrepreneur was the same. We thought that either COVID wasn't going to last, or we all thought it was going to end in like a few months, you know. 2 years later, can you imagine if right at the beginning someone said, oh, by the way, this is around for 2.5 years? I reckon a lot of people would have freaked out. But a lot of people went and did the thing you hate and started binge watching Netflix.
Yeah.
The entrepreneurs looked around and went, hey, how can this be an opportunity? And I remember one day, right at the early stages of COVID, I was driving home from something and I came off the slip road off the 101. And there was always a guy at the bottom of this thing selling T-shirts. Now, all of a sudden, that guy, that Mexican fella that was always there with his wife and kid, that was selling flowers and teddy bears on Valentine's and selling, masks on other day and selling flags when there was a Lakers game going on, was selling face masks.
Oh, yeah.
First time I'd ever seen face masks. And what they were actually bikini tops that he'd split and was sewed one bikini top and just put like a little tie around. So it was very amateurish, but they were literally bikini tops cut in half. But I thought to myself, if that guy can wake up in the morning, realize the need, go out and buy a whole bunch of shitty bikini tops and suddenly sew in some elastic bands to make them somewhat of a face mask, then why is the rest of the planet so lazy? But they were all on Netflix while, as you say, you were planning your virtual things.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to dive into was offer. Now, probably the king of the offer at the moment, Jason Fladlin, Alex Hamosi, they're doing so many irresistible offers, and this whole new terminology of it's all in the offer. Now, you've got your book out there, Crafted Offer. Why is it so much focus on the offer?
Because, well, actually, Charlie, right? She's my helper in all this. And I remember when I first met her, she was like, selling a book is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. And I was like, no, it's not. It's $30. It's going to be the easiest thing I've ever done, Charlie. And she was like, no, like, be prepared. You're starting a whole new business. Why would somebody buy your book when they can listen to your podcast, when they can go and listen to a bunch of free podcasts? Like, why are they going to buy your book? And I said, well, I'm going to help them actually achieve their goals. And she said, okay, how are you going to help them? I'm like, oh, I'll give them extra resources. I'll give them this, this, and this, So I really sweetened the deal by giving them extra resources to help them really take 7 so they can actually get what they really want in life. And we made it, lucrative for like a 10-book deal. That was like the big kahuna. You could get a lot of free stuff that way. So I think it goes back to, having those people in your life that kind of show you the way. And Charlie's definitely been that for me. She's helped so many authors. And so I did it, even though it kind of hurt. I was like, to give away all this free stuff. But then I know the goal. The goal is to help more people. And also like even in that, potentially get more book deals and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, big shout out to Charlie Fusco. She's a lovely friend of mine. She's a great girl. And bottom line of it is, for any authors out there and you, if Charlie says turn left when everyone's turning right, turn left. Listen to her; she knows her shit. So, and I'm not gonna fuck with Charlie. So, she punched me lights out. All right, so you've got the book coming out. It's only recently come out, so it's available everywhere. We've already said that you can look over to craftedoff.com and find out more about it. But what's next? I'm a great believer that the book release is one thing and then the momentum is another thing. Now, you're doing podcasts, but let's go forward, say 6 months, a year in advance. All the glory, sizzle, wow factor of your book being out there. We're bored of that now. That was a year ago. Where are you and what are you doing and what are you disrupting?
Well, hopefully in 6 months, I'm still going to be speaking on stages and getting my books into new audiences and new, companies using the Take 7 method, just helping their employees get what they want. So that's really what I see is like, this is going to launch my speaking career and helping more and more people that way. The next thing I'm going to be doing, which is crazy, is I'm actually moving from California to Minnesota, of all places. From California to Minnesota, because
you know the next question. So why? Let's just hit this. Why? I know the taxes, and I'm in Los Angeles.
So it's my son plays hockey,
Okay.
And he's 14. And it was either he was going to go live with another family. They call it a billet family. So he could play like high level hockey up there.
Okay.
Or we move. And so it was really important to me. We're moving. Our family of 5 is moving to Minnesota so he can play hockey. And so I feel like it's actually just like a whole new evolution. We'll definitely be back in California. California is my place. It's my home. So we'll be back after he's done with high school. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of excited to go and, conquer a new place and meet new people and see how I can serve the community and make just everything around me better. That's, if I go into a room, I want to make the room better. If I go anywhere, I want to make a person feel better. And so just going into a new state, I'm going to see how I can serve in my community. And hopefully we're signing another book deal in the next 6 months. I think that it's, my biggest thing is impact. And I don't ever see myself not coaching people. Once I figured out this method, I want to keep giving it and giving it and giving it to people and helping people achieve their goals and dreams. That's just really important to me.
Wow. I like the way if you enter a room, you want to make the room better. Yeah. I think that's an attitude that we should all have, rather than can I walk into the room and going, okay, I'm here now, entertain me, let me take. How can I make it better? So I appreciate that. All right. Well, look, it's been great. Good luck with the snow and the cold. That's going to be a shock. Now, you mentioned the whole family of 5. Is that right? You got a family of 5?
Yeah.
What do the other 4 think about it? Are they into the hockey in the cold?
My husband definitely is. He's like all about it. And then my other kids are not so much, but I'm trying to teach them this, like change is good. People get so stuck. I mean, we live in Newport Beach, so you're right in LA. I mean, it's the best place ever. Like we don't want to leave. We love our life right now. And, we're just trying to sell it to them. We're in the selling point right now because it's like, it's amazing. Change is good. It causes you to try new things, meet new people, will come back here. So it's not a forever thing, but it's really teaching them that like, hey, you got to have flexibility in your life because things don't always go as the way that you plan them.
How old are they?
So 14, 12, and 9.
Tell them the truth. You picked your favorite one and you're off to there. So, that'll handle it. It'll toughen them up. I think honesty is the best policy here. Well, look, thank you very much for being on the show. Again, another craftedoffer.com. That's where you can find. What about your socials? What's your social handle so people can follow you?
Yeah, I'm Cayla.craft everywhere. CAYLA.CRAFT on all platforms.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much for being on the show and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. You know what to do. If you love it, share, subscribe, but more than anything, do something with it. And remember, life's too short to play it safe. So disrupt, connect, and grow. See you next time.